Hello, heathens, and welcome to Spinning the Wheel podcast with me, your pink and growing host, Megan Angus. And this week we will be discussing Ostara season, full pink moon in Libra, lunar week 11. All right, you freaks. Side note to begin with, if my voice sounds a little my allergies have been like wacky for the last couple of days with the weather, so might be a lot of that in this podcast. Sorry in advance. Okay, let's just get right into it, shall we? Things of note. The next Wheel of the Year class is Beltane, and that is going to be April 21st, Thursday night, Thursday evening, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Probably run about 2 hours. This will be a live stream on YouTube, free for all beings of Earth. In these trying times of dismantling the curiarchy. But, you know, a witch has got to do what a witch has got to do. If you are subbed to my YouTube channel, you can chat with us in the chat, ask questions, heckle, what have you. And if you are signed up to my Patreon, thank you so much, because your Patreon support is what makes it possible for me to offer those classes for free. Yay! Thanks, guys. And if you are subbed at the Venus level, which is $9 and higher, you have access to the Patreon Dropbox, which is where we store goblins. There's like a couple of magical swords in there. No, I took all that stuff out. There is the workbook. There is the 7+ week calendar. There is spellcrafting and altar building and meditations and prayers and lists of deities to work with and. So avail yourself to those items if you are wanting them. All right, that's enough of that. If you want to know more about that stuff, you can sign up for my irregular newsletter on my website. And if you are looking for guidance on working with our Ostara season energy that we are in, spring energy, and Beltane season energy coming up as the sun moves through Taurus, etc., hit me up for a tarot reading or an astrology reading. Let's explore your natal chart and get into it. All right. Speaking of getting into it, let's get into it. All right. To orient us on the wheel, we are in Ostara season. Our witches work. We are shifting from dark into the light. And we're just about a month in on that work. So we are really shifting. Although if you are here with me in the Pacific Northwest, we are in our second winter, basically. The calendar says it's spring, but we all know better. We are also doing work around initiation, rites of passage, things like that, and setting intention for this solar year that has just begun. Our global themes that we see celebrated in a lot of our global holidays, in other religions, past and present: initiations, fertility, and rejoicing the return of life and light. Lots and lots and lots of revelations happen around this time of year in various religions. And lots of solar deities come back from the lands of the dead, or like make their first appearances after their birth at winter solstice. This is kind of these are like springtime is when they like really kind of come out and start to do their thing. So we see a lot of that stuff happening. And I want to say that we are sending peace and love and power to all of the people of the world fleeing or resisting their warring governments. Okay. April 16th is a Saturday, and that is a full cutie pink sprouting growing moon in Libra at 26 degrees at 11:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time later in the day for everybody else around the planet. Okay. What do we have with this moon? Well, first off, the full moon in our lunar process represents a fruit. A fruit has been produced on the vine of our process. So our work that we've been doing is beginning to show some kind of result, some kind of conclusion, some kind of product, some kind of, something. Traces of the effort are beginning to show. And this moon in Libra in particular um, is really super lovely because it's in Libra, right? Who is ruled by Venus. This whole week has a bit of a Venusian flavor to it, more or less running all through the week. So on the surface, this moon and in general, I mean, it is a full moon, and it's a full moon in Libra. So in general, hanging out with friends, being seen in the scene, being very social, like really reveling in that, lovely, lovely stuff. But I feel like folks can focus too much on the Venusian aspects of this moon, as much as I just emphasized them myself, and sort of forget about some of the deeper elements of what we can do with a full moon and a full moon in Libra. So before we get into this, let me say this. Some of the other names for this full moon are pink moon, sprouting grass moon, fish moon, the planter's moon, the paschal moon, because this is oftentimes the moon that is the closest to Easter, wildcat moon, moon when geese return in scattered formation, growing moon, and awakening moon. And these all really speak to the energy of where we are in the wheel. At this point, we are deep in the heart of spring. And we are coming into Beltane season where things begin to mature a little bit. And so Venus is all about that kind of yummy, lovey stuff. And Libra certainly loves to hobnob and, make alliances and all of that stuff. But on a deeper level here, we have a moon that really is speaking to the arts and artistry and creativity and ultimately creating things. That's sort of the root word of creativity, right? Is to create. And so this full moon in Libra for me really supports any and all interaction with art, artists, and creativity in any and all forms. It deeply supports us investigating and exploring our relationship with our own creativity, exploring the relational similarities between the artist as creator and God as creator. Like, where does the Venn diagram cross on those two concepts? Because we are about to step into the portion of the wheel where we are no longer visualizing, we're not working on the blueprint anymore. It is time to put hands in the dirt, physically or metaphorically. It is time to begin to build the thing, build the temple, enact the idea, embody the principle, like whatever it is that we are saying to ourselves, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do. It's time. It's time to physically do it here in the material world. So we need to take a minute to think about what is it to be a creator? And creators and gods are, synonymous a lot of the time. So where do we sit in that conversation? Now, this moon is square to Pluto, which is still hanging out in Capricorn, and trining Saturn, who is in Aquarius. And that makes me think a lot about the manipulative power dynamics in quote unquote canonized art or quote unquote recognized art, and like who is allowed into the museums and who is actually hung on the walls, and like what things are allowed to be said in those spaces and who gets to say them, and all the agendas that go along with all of that crap, right? Like that's world building too, right? Or world destroying, right? Like how many worlds have been, how many imaginary fucking worlds have been built by colonizers, destroying and repurposing the art and the artistic expression and the creative expression of people from other places, right? We could go into that, but this also makes me think about the fact that art sometimes has the capacity to speak truth to power in a way that words fail. So last week we talked about having hope and being a spiritual person and having faith as something that's like really kind of ridiculous and like super audacious or courageous, maybe, and very daring, right? And it's like super subversive, in my opinion. This week, I want us to think about how stepping into the space of artist slash creator is also just as fearless, just as courageous, just as ridiculous, and just as hopeful. So I encourage you heavily this weekend, um, even after the moon moves into Scorpio, to safely, right? COVID, folks, is spiking. Let's not get stupid about it, or let's not get stupider. But as safely as you can, in whatever ways are safe and healthy for you, go see some fucking art. Go to a gallery, go to a show, go look at things online, make some art, especially if you have an art project that's sort of been like hanging out off to the side, unfinished. This could be a really great time to finish that thing or continue to work on that thing. But I also deeply encourage you to support any creatives, artists, makers in your community. If you are thinking about buying something, can you find somebody in your community that makes those things and buy it from them instead? Are you thinking about, hanging some art in your house? Can you buy it from a local artist? Or, maybe you need a new tote bag for grocery shopping. Can you buy it from a local artist or an independent artist that you love online? That's totally great too. And also, I know probably as good as anybody out there, money is super tight. And so, if financially supporting an artist or a creator is not possible for you, reshare their artwork on the internet. Boast about them, praise them, thank them for their work, tell your friends about them, because that's also extremely valuable to people who are trying to like make it as artists and creatives in this world. Okay. For our lunar body with the moon in Libra, we are resting, relaxing, nourishing, or supporting, or otherwise restoring the hips, the kidneys, which is even more filtration and sending back good stuff, as well as our bladder. And of course, as I say every week, I am not a doctor of the physical corpus. I am a doctor of the cosmos and moon and stars. Uh, and bicycles, as we will discuss later in the podcast. So don't listen to me for medical advice. Talk to your trusted health advisor. And as I also say, you can always work with this in the metaphor of your choosing. It does not have to be the physical body. For our plant work, we are still leaving our plants alone, aesthetics only. Maybe wipe down the plant leaves, spin your plants, add some crystals, do some decorations, maybe wipe off the pots, make it cute. That's it. That's all we need to do. And then after all of that stuff, let me say that our waning moon enters Scorpio at 5:22 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So all of that stuff to say about Libra moon is kicking off at like 11:30, noon, basically Pacific time. and the moon slides into Scorpio 5.5 hours later. But I really feel like those vibes are going to kind of carry through all weekend. And we're going to talk about the moon in Scorpio here in just a second. But I kind of feel like it's kind of going to carry through all weekend. Okay. No astrology of note for this day. So let us move on to the holy days of April 16th. I said, not a doctor of the human corpus. What is wrong with me? Okay, all right. The holy days of April 16th. All right. We have on this day the heliacal rising of the fixed star Alphurg. This is a double star in the cord near the tail of the northern fish in the constellation Pisces. Another name of this star might be the dwelling of the fish. And, yes, we are still in sidereal astrology slash the physical physical astronomy. We are still passing through fixed stars that are associated with the constellation Pisces. We also have a mix of a bunch of other constellations, as we'll get into this week. But what I think is interesting here is that this star is connected to the head of Typhon. And Typhon, we know, is Tiamat. Tiamat is symbolism that comes through quite a bit with the constellation of Pisces when you start to really dig into the Babylonian stuff. All right. Also, April 16th through the 25th, we have the Lyrids meteor showers, which is super cool. If you have clear skies, you'll probably be able to see them. This is a really popular meteor shower because it kind of kicks off the first meteor shower after like a few month stretch of not really having any. However, we have a full moon at the same time as the peak of the meteor shower. So it's not going to be really until kind of closer to the 25th, which is sort of the end of the showers, that we're going to really be able to see them, unless the moon has already gone down. And then you'll have probably a sky that's dark enough to be able to see them. Also on this day, no, nothing. All right. Let's move on to April 17th. Another side note, I live in a really old building, hopefully for a lot longer, but and the radiators tonight are going ham. So if you can hear like steel drums in the background, I've not gone to Jamaica, unfortunately. I'm still in my apartment. It's just my radiator, like having a noise set over on the side. Okay. April 17th, Sunday, our waning moon has entered Scorpio. So yes, it was just full, but it is now waning. So while we are, hanging out, making art at the park or at the gallery, schmoozing with people safely, right? Everybody safely. We have, again, kind of that weirdo Pluto energy hanging out. The moon is still aspected by Pluto or aspecting Pluto. And so we may have like picked up some weird information, or we might have seen like a weird power dynamic that rubbed us the wrong way. Maybe it was something that we encountered and had to experience, or maybe it was something that we saw somebody else do or go through, or somebody was gossiping about something and we kind of picked up like a piece of information. It was like, oh, that's fucked up. Ultimately where I'm going is this. While the moon is hanging out in Scorpio, we're kind of confronted with the question of, what will I do to keep myself and my people safe? What am I willing to do? Where will I just like literally throw out my morals, or at least like super bend them to get me or my people what we need? Conversely, You might be confronted with issues around people who were once accepted in your social circles who are now on the outs for whatever reason. So yeah, weird social dynamics, weird power dynamics potentially coming up. And again, this maybe this stuff won't apply to you at all. And maybe this stuff is things that you're going to see in the world, but you're not personally experiencing. But I think that this moon really kind of helps us sort of like sit with, those types of questions of like, where do I play nice to be able to get along in society versus, where do I, where am I maybe a little shady because the situation is tilted against me and I have to be a little tricky about things. I have to be a little slippery about things, to be able to get by, to be able to get what I need, to be able to get what my people need. It's a tough question, but I think it's a question that's coming up for more and more people these days because a lot of folks are feeling the squeeze in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different environments. And also, a lot of stuff is coming up in the last few years in terms of like things that parts of society expect other parts of society to just deal with. And I think that there's also, a level of rising tension that's growing between different groups of people because what needed to get said hasn't been said, and now it's getting said, and now it's getting repeated, and now it's being asserted, and it's also coming with the message of, if you're not going to figure this out with us, we're going to go around you, and we're going to get what we need despite you, if not with you. So this is a moon of kind of asking yourself, where are you in that conversation? What do those types of conversations mean for you and your people? It's funky stuff, I know. If you want to just stay making art, that's fine. I think that's totally okay. But again, conversely, like I said before, you might be confronted with issues around people who were once accepted in your social circles who are now on the outs. What was it that put them out? What was it that made them not approved anymore? And how do you feel about those decisions? What side of the decision are you on? Was it super black and white, or is there a bunch of gray area and like murky shit there? Probably a little more murky than obvious, because that's kind of how life is. Yeah. Interesting moon. Also things that are sometimes best expressed through art. So says the radiator. All right. With our moon in Scorpio, we are resting, relaxing, nourishing, supporting, or otherwise restoring the organs and the processes of pleasure, reproduction, and waste management. So sex and death, always, always with Scorpio. If your nether bits are in need of a recharge, a cleansing, a resting, a restoration, this is the time. For our plant body work, we are wanting to plant, transplant, or graft for flowering bulbs, biennials, and perennial flowers, and vegetables that bear crops above ground, such as onions, carrots, potatoes, crops below ground. Sorry. Onions, carrots, potatoes, etc., etc. Okay. Let us move on to, yes, the holy days. The holy days. Briefly, before we get into the holy days, let me just very, very quickly mention for our astrology on this day, we have Mercury in Taurus, sextile Venus in Pisces at 13 degrees, and then a little bit later in the day, Mercury in Taurus conjunct Uranus at 13 degrees. So we in Taurus, obviously. So we can kind of say that Mercury conjunct Uranus in Taurus, sextile Venus. So again, bringing in that Venusian energy, Mercury wanting to think about it, Uranus wanting to bring in some surprising stuff. It might be a day that we're like extra looking for like something new in our partnerships, wanting to do something spontaneous on this day. There might be some deviations to our plans. We may have to like take a different route, or some of our travel plans may suddenly change or alter in some way. But generally speaking, in a fun way, especially because Venus is involved. So it's like, oh no, a party, kind of a thing. All right. Okay. So now the holy days. Starting with, very quickly, the heliacal rising of the fixed star Vertex. This is a star found in the constellation Andromeda, which we have talked about quite a bit, and we will continue to because we have more fixed stars in this constellation coming up. Also, on this day, from our Catholic and global friends and ancestors, we have a little old holiday called Easter. Not sure if you're familiar with it, but you know, also called Pascha or Resurrection Sunday. Easter is a Christian festival and a cultural holiday commemorating the resurrection of Jesus from the dead, described in the New Testament Bible as having occurred on the third day of his burial following his crucifixion by the Romans at Calvary. I feel like you guys are probably vaguely familiar with this holiday. I do, however, talk about it quite a bit in the Ostara class, so go watch that video if you want more information about it. But, you know, eggs, kind of a big deal. The return of the solar slash fish deity, kind of a big deal. Did I mention we were still passing through the fixed stars of the constellation Pisces? Yeah, okay. All right, yeah, I think you get it. All right. Also on this day, from our Canadian Catholic friends and ancestors, we have the Feast of Saint Kateri. This person, it makes me sad. I talk about her every year, but it makes me sad. Gaderi Degaguita in in Canadian Catholic history. This is a Mohawk woman who was baptized with the name Catherine in approximately the 1650s, the 1660s. She was beatified and made a saint in the 1980s. She was born in a Mohawk village on the south side of the Mohawk River in what is present day New York State. She contracted smallpox in an epidemic. Gosh, I wonder how. Her family died and her face was scarred. She converted to Catholicism, I'm sure completely of her own free will, at age 19 when she was baptized and given the Christian name Kateri in honor of Catherine of Siena. And she passed at the age of 24. And yeah, another Native person who has been sainted. So there's that on that day. All right, let's move on to April 18th. Okie dokie artichoke, April 18th. It is a Monday. You've been warned. Our waning moon is still in Scorpio. So we're back at the office. We're back at work. I hope you're not actually working at a physical job, but some of you are, and I'm so sorry. So the moon's in Scorpio, so there's that. Okay. And then super briefly in our astrology up in the sky, we have Venus in Pisces, sextile Uranus in Taurus at 13 degrees. So that sextile is exact on this date. That really emphasizes that like spontaneity and, quirkiness and unexpectedness in our relationship dealings on this day. There might be some unexpected things that happen and also we have the sun in Aries square Pluto in Capricorn at 28 degrees. This is, I think, pretty much the last aspect that the sun is going to make before it leaves Capricorn and before it leaves Aries and heads into Taurus in a couple of days. So Sun square Pluto, you know, it can be a little spicy. It can feel like a day where you just like can't make progress, but often it can be a day where we get real super fixated on something. Pluto can get real compulsive about things or be super fixated on things. It can be a day where we feel like we are up against a big giant power structure of some kind or a big giant power dynamic. And the odds are not even. The odds are maybe not in our favor. Or maybe we are the super powerful person in a dynamic, and maybe we are swinging our power around a little bit too much and kind of need to rein it in a little bit. That's always what's up when it comes to Pluto, is power dynamics, intensity, and wanting to like drill into things and drill into the heart or the bottom of things. So, that could also be fun in the bedroom, but be careful. Uh, but if that's not how it's playing out for you, it's playing out in the like psychological realms or the financial realms or whatever. And again, as I say always with the astrology, sometimes these are things that we are going to experience in our personal lives, and sometimes these are things that we are witnessing happen and play out in the world. So on the world stage, Sun square Pluto, not necessarily a super exciting day for like peace and stuff. you know. So just like, as I always say, remember, you can always put yourself in timeout. You can always take a walk around the block. You can always say, can I have 5 minutes to think about that? Can I have a day and get back to you? You can always ask, right? You can always ask for time or a little space to process something. And I encourage you to do whatever you can to get good at reminding yourself. I can always ask, and I can always, if I can, if I'm in charge, I can always take myself out of the situation and walk away, take 5, breathe, check my motivations, what's going on, where am I? Am I on autopilot right now, or am I present for what's happening? And doing our 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 check-ins and all of that kind of stuff. When it comes to Pluto, it can get real weird real quick. And I always catch myself talking like this because I'm old, I don't know, or lazy. But A, I don't want to be fatalistic about things. And B, I want us, me included, to remember that the planets are not causing these things. I don't believe that. I guess I should say that. There are plenty of astrologers that do believe that. And there's an argument there. But the way that I approach astrology presently, because I have the right to change my mind. But the way that I approach astrology presently is that these planets move in circles and human behavior moves in cycles. And so, of course, those things are going to sync up. If we study hard enough, we'll find patterns. And I don't necessarily think that the planets are causing us to act this way. I think they are indicative of points in our cycles of behavior. And so Pluto, for me, points to moments in our cycles of behavior and our cycles of psychology where we're going to get weird about power, especially if it's a square from the sun, our sense of self. Where either we're going to witness something weird with power, we're going to be on the receiving end or the giving end or the whatever. Side note to all of that stuff, also, if we are being present with ourselves and we're in our process and we're doing our good work, especially if we're alone, Sun square Pluto can oftentimes be a really cool time for personal investigation. Not destroying yourself, not like beating yourself up and pretending we're doing personal work and investigating, actually like lovingly, caringly, compassionately asking yourselves, why do I do this? Why do I believe this? Why am I like this? That kind of work can be really fantastic on this day because we really get to some meaty stuff in there. We really get to some like deep internal stuff. But if we're not present with it, it can definitely turn into a slog. So don't do that to yourself. There's plenty of other stuff in the world that's trying to make you feel bad. Don't help. All right. Other than that, that's all that's going on for the moon, and that's all that's going on for astrology. So let's get into the holy days of April 18th. All right, from our Greek friends and ancestors, we have the holy festival of Moichia. The month of Moichion is named after the festival of Artemis of Moichia, the name of a steep hill, Moichia. itself named for the hero Muinkios, which is near the Athenian point Piraeus. Here, Artemis, always at home on mountain slopes, had a sanctuary, and two types of offerings are associated with this festival, which seem to point to the two different sides of Artemis's character. This festival honors Artemis as the Lady of the Beasts and as the moon goddess. And as the Lady of the Beasts, there's a really interesting festival that we don't have much evidence of, but just a few little traces that have a part where there are young women that dance in saffron tunics, and there's a bear and a lot of really cool stuff, really interesting symbolism. And then on the other side, we have the making of mooncakes. And these mooncakes would have been like these little frosted cookies, basically, that had candles on them. But specifically, they were meant to be eaten at the double shining, is the phrase. And archaeologists think that what that means is that the festival or the ritual itself would have taken place at sunset, when the sun is setting, but the moon has already risen, which you will get a bit of that right here on and around the full moon. So yeah, kind of cute. Also on this day, we have Easter Monday from our global and Catholic friends and ancestors. And this is, of course, the Monday after Easter. I know. Esoteric. But we're going to get into it on this podcast, you guys. I'm serious. All right. Okay. Chonies, they will be hiked. All right, April 19th is a Tuesday, and we have our disseminating moon in Sagittarius at 15 degrees. It is exact at 8:04 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This moon is square Venus, hanging out in Pisces, and trine Chiron, hanging out in Aries. Okay, so let's get into it. This is a great moon for philosophizing and thinking about what other people think about the world. Now, maybe this is also a good moon to get together with folks and discuss stuff. But if you do, you want to have an environment where people feel like they're free to say whatever needs to be said and that those ideas aren't going to get shut down. Now, going back to that square to Venus, it is, generally speaking, social and affectionate, and it can be a little sentimental. So even though it's a square in general, it's actually helping with the social lubrication versus like making people a little more crusty and crunchy. But we also have that trine to Chiron, and even though it's a trine, it's Chiron. And so there's that energy of bringing in past wounds and being really vulnerable. And so there's that too. If you feel like you, A, have the capacity to even do this kind of work, but B, that you are with a room of people that you can trust or a group of people that you can trust, this could be an exceptionally powerful moment to have like a group get together and talk about your pain and your wound and be really vulnerable. And people say what needs to be said, and some really powerful things might be aired out. Kind of approaching things from a philosophical standpoint, but ultimately like hashing out some shit. It could be. It really, really could be. And it might not be too. And that's okay. This might be a time of just like reading philosophers or listening to people specifically that you disagree with. If you have the space for that, I'm saying if. But after all of it, like after it all plays out, also part of the work of this is like later when you're alone, don't do this work with another person, do this alone. Think about the people that you really disagreed with or the opinions that you disagreed with, or when a person said XYZ, you were like, no, I totally can't relate to that. I have no idea why they would even say it that way. like that stuff, because we're going to have those reactions even when we're in a vulnerable place, even when we're being heart open with people. There's going to be the little voices in the back that are like, I don't know about that part. We don't have to act on them, but they're going to be there, right? Think about those places where you kind of were like, I don't know about that idea. I don't know about that piece of it. And think about why you disagree with them, why you feel like your stance is separate or apart from that stance. But also think about what may have happened to this person, good or bad, that they now believe that this is the way the world is. That's also really important. With Sagittarius stuff, there's a element in Sagittarius about traveling long distances, and in that regard, we're kind of traveling philosophically a long distance and trying to see that person that's way over there in their philosophy. Can we get that? Like, we don't have to agree with them, but can we understand them? That's fundamental to humans getting along on Earth. And I think we have to move past it. I don't think we get to stop there. I don't think it's just a matter of, I don't agree with you at all, but I understand you. I think we have to move past that, but it starts with, can I at least understand why this person is doing what they're doing, even though I supremely disagree with it? That kind of stuff. Okay. With our waning moon in Sagittarius, for our lunar body, we are relaxing, resting, nourishing, supporting, or otherwise restoring the lower back, the sciatic nerve family, and the thighs. Again, not a doctor of the human corpus, doctor of the cosmos. So check with your trusted health advisor. But for our plant body work, we are harvesting, we're doing pest control, disease control, we're plowing, we're weeding, we're pruning, we are aerating the soil, all to support below ground growth and healthy root systems. What all is going on this day? Oh my God, like a literal shit ton of stuff. Okay. I'm like looking through my notes and I'm like, oh, right. This is one of those days that I was like, oh Lord, that's going to take a half hour. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the astrology of this day, because also on this day, we have the sun moving into Taurus. Okay. For me, when the sun moves into Taurus, this is sort of the like unofficial opening bell of Beltane for me. This is the pre-funk of Beltane. The pre-funk of Beltane officially begins when the sun moves into Taurus. For me, I know that there are a lot of folks that really feel like Beltane is fa-bam, April 30th, May 1st, but I'm like, nah, bitch. The second that the Taurus gate has been opened, it's like, take off your pants. All right. Taurus is an earth sign. It is a fixed sign. It wants to establish and sustain real shit happening on the physical material plane. It wants things with substance. It wants stuff made out of rocks. It wants real food and a velvet couch and all of that stuff. It wants possessions. It also wants to possess. So Taurus energy for us can be determined, it can be loyal, it can also be really possessive, it can also be really stubborn. And all of those things can help us in various ways, and all of those things can hinder us in various ways. So as we move into the heart of spring and into Beltane season, thinking about this in the context of the wheel, as the sun moves into Taurus, this energy really helps us come into the idea of, or actually I should say, the physical experience of physically embodying whatever it is that we're going to do in this portion of the cycle. Again, like I said before at the beginning of the podcast, we're moving away from the work that looks like imagining things. We're moving away from the work that looks like envisioning or becoming inspired or summoning our courage. And now we are moving into the work of, I'm physically putting my hands on the thing, and we're going to actively do it in the world. I'm not just going to talk about it. I'm not just going to look up stuff on the internet. I'm going to physically do things in the world. That's what the sun in Taurus represents for us, encourages us to do, um, all of that stuff. So, of course, look at your natal chart and see where in your natal chart is Taurus. Those are the houses of your life that are getting lit up right now, that are going to have extra focus as we move through this portion of the season out of Ostara into Beltane. Um, and and more. So I did like a tiny little write up. Oh, you guys will get it soon. You haven't seen it yet. Patrons are going to get a tiny little write up for Sun moving into Taurus, and some stuff to work with. Okay, that's enough of that. Yeah, that's enough of that. Now we're going to go into 170,000 holy days for April 19th. Okay. All right, the holy days of April 19th. I hope you packed water. All right. Uh, First off, we have the heliacal rising of a couple of fixed stars, because why not? First off, the fixed star Al-Risha. This marks the knot of the cord formed by the joining together of the ends of the ribbons that bind the two fishes by the tail in the constellation of Pisces. I actually talk quite a bit about the fixed star Al-Risha in the Ostara class. And side note of the side note, actually, in this year's class, I don't think I went off on it as hard. Maybe I did. It all blurs together. I know I went off on it last year's class. But also, there's a big write up about it in the Ostara workbook. It connects to some really cool stuff. But one of the things that it connects to is Pasanki, which is the Ukrainian or Eastern European practice of dyeing eggs with those really intricate patterns and woven symbols and things like that. And the word Alrisha plays a really important part in that practice, weirdly, except that they're all happening at the same time of the year. What? I'm sure it's just a coincidence, as we like to say. Also, on this day, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Mirak, and this is found in the constellation of Andromeda as well. It specifically means a girdle or a waistcloth, or perhaps the belly of the woman who is Andromeda. But we know, those of us who are, studying the witchcraft, that girdles and waistcloths and belts have been magical items for high priestesses and magic witches, seers, and sorceresses for a very, very, very long time. Girdles and belts played a huge part in childbirthing, but they also played a huge part in showing status and rank in various civilizations. So, um, just randomly having a star that marks her girdle or her waistcloth is kind of saying more than what it seems to be saying on the surface, if you know what I'm trying to, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. All right. Also on this day, from April 19th to May 28th, we have the Eta Aquarids meteor showers. Now, this meteor shower will peak around May 5th or 6th. So that's very close to our next new moon. So we will have nice dark skies for the peak of this meteor shower. The Eta Aquarids are meteorites that seem to emanate from the constellation Aquarius. And at this time of year, Aquarius is rising at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So dark skies, but a little difficult to see. Oh, man. Oh, I'm going to die. No, I'll be fine. Oh, we can do this. Okay. From our Islamic friends and ancestors, we have the festival or the holy day of Nuzul al-Quran. And this is the first revelations of the Quran to Muhammad. Now, this is a holy day that is marked on several different days, all of them odd or even, depending on which group of Muslims are recognizing it. What I will say is that it always happens during Ramadan. It is not necessarily always on this day. Ramadan moves anyways every year. But my point is that one of the sources that I found puts it at the 19th day of Ramadan, but it's also on a whole bunch of other days. So we just find it somewhere in this second half of Ramadan. Also on this day, from our Balinese friends and ancestors, we have the women's fertility celebration. Um, I have had more notes and less notes about this in the about this holiday in the past, and it frustrates me because sometimes I can't find the old websites that I found, and I'm like, was that real or was that just some weird thing that I found? But given other things that are happening in Bali at this time of year, there are New Year's and there are other like fertility and crop celebrations happening. This makes perfect sense. What I think I remember about this has to do with water and ablutions. I think that there's something with washing each other's feet, but I could be super duper wrong about that. Um, so I don't want to just sit here and speculate like randomly. Do I remember anything about this? But as I said, I do know that there's as we've talked about last week and as we're talking about this week, there are other Balinese festivals that are happening around this same time of year that celebrate a women's or support the idea that a women's fertility celebration would happen at this time of year as well. Okay, moving on to the festivals of the Green Man from our European friends and ancestors. This is a modern uh, kind of opening the season of Green Man festivals that sort of take place from now all the way through to the end of summer in various parts of Europe, all over Europe. Some of the festivals have very little to do with anything that might be thought of as like quote unquote authentic paganism and are just sort of like Renaissance festivals. And some of them have quite a bit of symbolism and witchery involved. So different from region to region in terms of how Christianized the region was and how much of their pre-Christian pagan heritage was left. Also on this day, from our Catholic friends and ancestors, we have the Feast of Saint Expedite. Saint Expedite is the patron saint of urgent causes. If you work with saints, this is the day to light a candle to Saint Expedite to get some shit done right now. Interestingly slash weirdly, Saint Expedite was a martyred Roman soldier who converted to Catholicism or Christianity, and was martyred. We have a lot of Roman soldier holidays and Roman wartime holidays at this time of year. In the background of a lot of the Roman public festivals that are happening is this sort of drumming up of the military and like of a baseline celebration of militarized Rome, soldiers, the iconography of the warrior or the archetype of the warrior, right down to like even the horns that would like blow at battles are worshipped and celebrated and cleansed and stuff. So it's a lot of soldier and war imagery from uh Rome and yeah, from Rome at this time of year. Sorry. Also from our Roman friends and ancestors, we have a Cerealia. This is the major festival celebrated for the grain goddess Ceres. It was held for 7 days from mid to late April. The Ludi Cereales, or the Games of Ceres, were held as part of the festival in the Circus Maximus. Ceres' search for her lost daughter Proserpina was represented by women clothed in white, running with lighted torches. There's another portion of this festival that it's kind of shitty, but um, nobody knows why people would do it. But one of the way that the festival would start was that a fox's tail was lit on fire and it was let out to run around the Circus Maximus. And various people have, various scholars have tried to come up with some reason as to why they would do that, but, they did a lot of weird shit back in the day. Moving on. And that brings us to, from our global friends and ancestors, a little old moment called Bicycle Day. Is this the holy day that I took the most notes for? You goddamn right it is. Okay. Bicycle Day is an informal celebration that marks the anniversary of the day when Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann intentionally ingested 250 micrograms of LSD. The first LSD trip occurred on April 19th, 1943. Albert Hofmann first synthesized lysergic acid dilethamide, LSD, in November of 1938 while researching lysergic acid derivatives. The main intention of the synthesis was to obtain an analeptic, which is a central nervous system stimulant. 5 years later, Hoffman decided to resynthesize LSD and take a second look at it. Having accidentally absorbed a small amount of LSD through his fingertips, he discovered its effects. On April 19th, 1943, Hoffman intentionally took LSD and experienced intense changes in perception. The events of his trip made Hoffman realize he had discovered an extraordinarily potent psychoactive substance. However, he did not think that anyone would use it as a recreational drug. Sure, he first saw LSD as a psychiatric tool, which it was for quite some time. Until, the US government was like, hey, that works. We can't have that. The anniversary of his LSD trip is known as psychedelic communities as Bicycle Day because Hoffman had to take a bicycle ride home from his laboratory. The first celebration took place in 1985. God's bless. Remember, kids, don't do drugs, but if you do the good ones. But before that, how about an ad? Okay. If you love this podcast, you can support this work through Patreon. Thank you a bajillion billion times. See, the sirens are going off even as I say it. Thank you so much to my patrons. You guys don't even know. You don't even know. Thank you so much. You can sub for as little as $1 if you just think this podcast is dope and you want to support it. I don't run ads on the podcast, partly because I don't want to, and partly because I won't get paid even if I do. So screw them, man. You can sub, as I said, for as little as $1 or $5, even if you want to just support the podcast. And this is plenty of information. But if you want even more information, extra podcasts, extra videos, extra information about the Wheel of the Year, magical practices, tarot, etc., subbing at the higher levels, you get all kinds of cool free stuff. And at the even higher levels, you get free readings every month with me to be able to integrate all of this information into your personal life based on what's going on in your natal chart and all of that other good stuff. Join and change your life forever. Or, whatever. Thanks so much for the support. If you can't support financially, I completely understand because life sucks on Earth right now. It's too expensive for everything. Tell a friend, share it on social media, give it a thumbs up. If you're feeling especially hedonistic, you can leave a rating or a review. All right, that's the end of the ad. Let's get back to the podcast. All right, you fiends. April 20th is a Wednesday, and that brings us to our disseminating moon still hanging out in Sagittarius for pretty much all day for almost everybody around the planet. At 8:52 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the waning moon enters Capricorn. While the moon is in Capricorn, this is a fantastic time for reinforcing borders, protections, fences, and boundaries. Now, I don't mean borders as in continents. We could do different kinds of work there. But what I want you to think about is, where do you need to reinforce a boundary or a fence or a border in your life? Maybe it's actually in your physical world too. If you do magic, if you do ritual, if you do cunning work, this is a really great time to reinforce your protection spells on your home or your car or your family members, pets, what have you. Um, but also kind of asking yourself, like, where does an energetic or emotional fence need some tending? And specifically, I want you to think about this work as a means of, like, engaging in loving yourself and serving your community by doing this kind of work. So, borders, protection, boundaries, fences, those types of structures. Where do those things need some reinforcement in your life? That is what this moon is asking us to focus on. And the moon is going to be in Capricorn for the next couple of days, so you'll have a little time to work on that. For our lunar body, we are nourishing, supporting, resting, or relaxing, or otherwise um, chilling out the bones, the skeletal system, hair, nails, and teeth. And for our plant body, we are maintaining or we are breaking down old containers, old borders, old fences, old beds, old structures. So part of our work here with the moon is to reinforce and to build up. And part of this is to look around our physical world and see where do these things maybe either need to be reinforced, maintained, right? Or destroyed. Like maybe it is beyond repair. This thing needs to be taken apart and start anew. We have no astrology of note for this day, and we only have one holiday for 420. That's right, it's 420 from our global friends and ancestors. And if we want to think about it in the larger spectrum of things, I mean, metaphorically speaking, in the historical sense, just spent 419 tripping our labia or balls off, or whatever you have. It's gone now. It's done. And so that makes sense that we're just now going to spend a day getting as baked as possible as like the recovery come down from that. So that's pretty much what's up. Why is 420 420? There are a bunch of different theories concerning the connection between the number 420 and cannabis subculture. There is a meme out there that 420 is a police code. It is not. That's not true. The most widely circulated story, and I feel like I actually talked about this when I was writing Stash Box for Seattle Weekly several years ago. Um, I believe this was first published in like the 1980s or the early 90s in High Times. Was that there was a group of teenagers who called themselves the Waldos in California, and they would meet after school every day to get high, and they would basically meet about 420. And so that's basically it. But across the planet, across the country at first, and now across the world, 420, April 20th, is a day where cannabis smokers love to celebrate and get together and blaze tough, homie. Um, some people even use these days to organize events in support of legalization of cannabis. If that is something happening in your area, could be something you want to throw in your efforts towards. It is a pretty cool medicine on top of being a fun toy. All right, that's all I have to say about that because drugs. Okay, let's move on to April 21st. All right, April 21st is a Thursday, and our waning moon is still hanging out in Capricorn. We have no astrology of note for this day, so let's get right into the holy days of April 21st. From the sky, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Mira. This represents the right arm of the asshole Perseus who killed Medusa. And that's all I have to say about that. From our Indonesian friends and ancestors, we have Kartini Day. Kartini Day, also referred to as Women Emancipation Day, is an Indonesian holiday that commemorates Raden Ajeng Kartini. She was the first Indonesian feminist and is considered a national heroine of Indonesia. At 12, she learned to speak Dutch. She had to leave school, but she continued to read books to learn as much as she could. While reading Dutch newspapers, she became interested in the issues of emancipation of women and other problems of Indonesian society. She viewed the feminist movement as a part of a wider socio-political movement. And she was doing all of this in the late 1800s, early 1900s. In 1903, she had to enter into an arranged marriage. Her husband, however, was an understanding man and helped her establish a school for women. However, unfortunately, she died in 1904 following the birth of her son, which is something that takes a lot of people away from us, unfortunately. After her letters, or after her death, her letters to her European friends were collected and published under the title Out of the Darkness Comes Light. Kartini Day was established in 1964 by the first president of Indonesia, Sukarno, excuse me. It marks her birth anniversary. Also on this day from our Icelandic friends and ancestors, we have the first day of summer, quote unquote, Sumardagurin Fyrsti. Sumardagurin Fyrsti, which is the first day of summer, aka Sommersblot. We talked about Sommersblot last week as well. This is when Iceland in the modern era celebrates this holiday. It is a public holiday in Iceland, celebrated on the first Thursday after April 18th. Again, I have a big piece over on my website about this. And it's a really cool holiday. But it basically, it shows how also in the old Icelandic calendar, the year was divided in half. There was not 8 holidays. There wasn't even 6 or even 4. There was just 2 big holidays, or 2 big halves to the year, summer and winter. And this introduced the summer half of the year. Also on this day from our Greek friends and ancestors, we have Olympia. This was a festival in honor of the Olympian Zeus, not affiliated with the games. It was associated with the inauguration of the Temple of the Olympian Zeus at Athens. The festival included a procession of cavalry and, at least in Hellenic times, cavalry contests and exhibitions. Again, with the military stuff sort of being in the background of a lot of the things. These are Greeks, but Greco-Roman era, because a lot of this was like this temple was not completed until Roman times. So there's a lot of crossover here. And you could see sort of the militarization really starting to creep in with a lot of the things that are happening. Also on this day, from our Roman friends and ancestors, we have Perilia, aka the founding of Rome. This is a semi-official holiday still celebrated in the Italian capital on April 21st, or the closest weekend. The celebration includes a costumed procession and a symbolic opening of the city gates. According to legend, Rome was founded by the twins Romulus and Remus. They were suckled by a she-wolf. Their mother was the daughter of Numitor, the former king of Alba Longa. Numitor was ousted by his brother Amulius, who killed Numitor's son, etc., etc. What do I want to say about this? It's another sort of very patriarchal and patriotic, yay Rome kind of a moment. And so this is marked in the ancient era, but also, as I said, in the modern day as the day that Rome was sort of founded or conceptualized. From our Indian friends and ancestors, specifically in the region of Tripura, we have Gari Puja. This is dedicated to Baba Gariya, who is a form of, or another iteration of, Ganesha. The Gari Puja festival is dedicated to Baba Gariya, the deity of wealth, livestock, and households. So we already see those abundance festivals happening, starting to really come in as we sort of creep up to the beginning of Beltane. Some think that Garya is the Tripuri form of Ganesha, one of the most worshipped Hindu deities, the son of Shiva and Parvati. Ganesha is revered by all Hindu denominations as the bringer of good luck, the remover of obstacles, and the patron of wisdom, intellect, arts, and sciences. The main goal of the celebration is to worship Lord Garya so that he brings harmony, peace, and wealth to all households in Tripura. The key attribute of the festivities is a bamboo pole. This actually really got me. It is a bamboo pole decorated with flowers and garlands to worship the deity. Yes, very similar to a maypole. To appease Lord Garya, people bring eggs and fowl, which symbolize fertility and prosperity, to the pole and leave them there as a sacrifice. Dozens of people stand in line in front of the pole waiting for their turn to worship Garya and offer him a sacrifice. You gotta love it. As we like to say here on the podcast, I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Let's move on to April 22nd. April 22nd. It is a Friday. Okay, we have our waning moon still hanging out in Capricorn right up until the very, very end of the day. At 11:17 p.m., it switches over into Aquarius, but we're going to leave the Aquarius information for next week. I know. You'll deal with it. It's okay. So let us move directly on to the holy days of April 22nd, wherein we shall find the heliacal rising of the fixed star Mesarthim. This fixed star's name, Mesarthim, basically means the tripod fire. This is the first star of Aries by some counts. We've talked about this before on the podcast. When we talk about the stars that are in a constellation, that is an approximation, big time. We know that even amongst the groups of people that use the same stars to mean the same constellation, they use different stars. So constellations have gotten bigger and smaller, more and less complex over time. There's a big argument between astronomy and astrology, no less the various branches of both of those schools of thought and theory. So when we say the first star of Aries, there's a big giant asterisk next to that. But whatever. What it really indicates is that we're at the beginning of Aries, one, and two, specifically what I think is trippy is that it also connects to the name of tripod fire, because the constellation of Aries has not always been depicted as a ram. It has also been depicted as a tripod fire, or a fire on a three-legged sensor, basically. But the tripod fire also speaks to the fire that nomadic people would put together, where they kind of put three stones together to be able to balance their cooking pot on, and then have the fire underneath that. So it speaks to the nomadic traveler already kind of moving out into the world, which we talked about that symbolism last week and the week before with all of the waterway openings to like begin the whole traveling merchant season that takes place, all of that kind of stuff. I don't know. It links together for me, man, and I think it's cool. All right. Also on this day, we have from our global friends and ancestors, Earth Day. International Mother Earth Day is an annual global observance held on April 22nd. It was established by the United Nations, amazingly enough. However, the tradition of celebrating Earth Day is a worldwide event dedicated to environmental protection in numerous countries. The celebration has been extended for an entire week, dedicated to activities that focus on environmental issues. It is referred to as Earth Week. Earth Day was first celebrated around 1970, and then it went international. It's celebrated in 140 different countries, and it's a really fantastic day to root ourselves in this earthy, fixed Taurus energy. Thinking about tarot, Taurus, of course, connects us to the Hierophant, but the ruling planet of Taurus is Venus, and that connects us to the Empress card. And if that isn't Mama Earth, I don't know who is. So if you are wanting to turn this day into something that isn't just a global meme, but is actually like a holy day for you, easily done. Also on this day from our global friends and ancestors, we have the Day of Silence. This is an annual awareness campaign launched to raise awareness about the bullying and harassment that LGBTQ, IA, and Two-Spirit people have to face often on a daily basis. Day of Silence. Also on this day from our Slavic friends and ancestors, we have Berzozol/Lila's Day. Now, the information about this is interesting. Let's get into it. First off, this is a holiday that is marked on modern pagan, like Eastern European/Slavic pagan calendars as being here in April. But when we look up the word Berazozol, it connects us to the month of March. It connects us to Mars as well. And we know that there's a whole bunch of Eastern European, really good, like Maslenitsa and a bunch of holidays that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, like as we step into March season, and Aries season, we have all of these March holidays that are like the spirit of March. However, Lila is an interesting goddess, and there's a big old asterisk next to her name because Lila, in theory, is a goddess of love and nature and the rebirth of nature, the patron of weddings and matriarchy and the protectors of families and ancestors who have passed away. In Polish mythology, she is the wife of the god Lado and the mother of the divine twins Lel and Polel. And now that information has been around for a little while. But now there are new studies happening that are suggesting that a lot of that might not actually be true. That the word Lila or Leda, because there's Leda and Lada, or Lada and Lido, Layla or Lada might actually be words for spring or springtime or spring energy, and not actually refer to a deity. I don't want to start any fights. I'm not saying that I know this for certain or that this is absolutely true or not true, but apparently a lot of this information that this is a deity's name came from just a couple of people, and their evidence is spurious. It's not super great. And a lot of other like linguistic, reconstructionists and folks like that have said, no, this doesn't actually make sense when we dig into the history of these words. These words are description words. These words mean a magical item or a movement in a ritual or a thing that might be worn, but they are not names. So, right? So there's that. And these are the types of arguments and discussions and investigations that we pagans have to participate in. We have to, a phrase that I often use in my mind when I think about this type of stuff is to treasure lightly. Take the information, treasure it, hold it lightly, because it could be wrong, right? We have experienced thousands of years of our history and our culture being obliterated, whether it is Slavs in Eastern Europe, whether it's Norse folk, whether it's Welsh pagans, whether it's Croatian pagans, whether it was Greeks, whether it was Egyptians, all of these histories have been overrun, destroyed, appropriated, rewritten 100 times. So it's very reasonable that some things have gotten mixed up here and there. What I want to say here, though, is that I think that this is a day for pagans that are Eastern European or Slavic folk, or folks that are very interested in or influenced by the Slavic paganism. Do research on this day. The Wikipedia page on Leda or Lada is incredible, and it talks about this whole thing from all the different angles that there's evidence from so far. So it doesn't definitively say yes or no in either direction. It just presents all of this really cool information. It's a deep ass dive, but if this is a goddess that you like to work with, I really recommend researching this. And here is what I want to leave you with, that I think is maybe the most important thing about this kind of an argument, or this kind of a moment that's like, oh, is this true or not true? Sometimes we never know. Again, because of the diaspora, because of the destruction of our history and our cultures and traditions as pagans in a global movement, global collective there. But what is the more important thing for you as an individual? One, if you connect with the spirit of spring through this word, and they come to you as a deity, have at it. Like, who cares, right? Cool. Also, I think that it's profoundly important for us to know the truth about our history and not just make stuff up to fill in the blanks. Was there a Slavic goddess dedicated to spring? Probably. But wouldn't we want to know her real name? Wouldn't we want to know her real customs? Maybe Leela or Lada were the names of her sacred items, and we would want to know that, right? So there's no harm in folks getting it wrong, right? There's a little harm if you're doing it maliciously, if you're lying about it, sure. I mean, and researchers have. There is some harm because it steers us in the wrong direction, right? It obfuscates whatever the truth is. And we want to know what the truth is, even if it means that we are a little more empty-handed. That's where I stand with that stuff. I encourage you to make your own decisions about those things. And, and I understand why folks hold on to information that's a little questionable sometimes, is because it does sometimes feel better to have a lie than to have an empty hand. I know. I am a person that's like, no, I want to know the truth. Even if it means that I have no god names left at the end of the thing. Damn it. I'd rather know that. But that's me, and that's a part of how I work with my spiritual practice. So, all right, well, that was a tangent. Let me move on to the last two holy days of April 22nd are from our modern Norse friends and ancestors. We have Yggdrasil Day. In Norse cosmology, Yggdrasil is an immense and central sacred tree. Around it exists everything else, including the 9 worlds. Yggdrasil is an immense ash tree that is the center of the cosmos and considered extremely holy. The gods go to their Yggdrasil daily to assemble at the traditional governing assemblies called things, which I love that about about Norse. The generally accepted meaning of Old Norse Yggdrasil is Odin's horse, meaning gallows. And this interpretation comes about because Drasil means horse, and Ig or Igger is one of Odin's many names. Dude has like 100 names, just like Jupiter does. The poetic Edda poem Havamal describes how Odin sacrificed himself by hanging from a tree, making this tree Odin's gallows. This tree may have been Yggdrasil. Gallows can be called the horse of the hanged, and therefore Odin's gallows may have developed into the expression Odin's horse and then became the name of the tree. And here also is a point where Yggdrasil might mean a magical thing, and the there might even be a word that we're supposed to be saying before Yggdrasil. Also on this day, from our pagan friends and ancestors, we have Odin's Day, of course, because we have Yggdrasil's Day. Odin deeply connected to Yggdrasil. Odin is Woden. connected to Wednesday, therefore Mercury. And Odin, as we see, is a god of wisdom, healing, death, royalty, the gallows, knowledge, war, battle, victory, sorcery, poetry, frenzy, and the runic alphabet. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of our lunar week. Let's hit this wrap up, shall we? All right, my good homies. The wrap up for this week. We are moving in our lunar phases from Libra through Capricorn. So we are running the gamut of those cardinal signs again, officially opening up spring. And as we mentioned, that Capricorn moon, tips over into Aquarius just before the end of the week. And so there's our fixed signs starting to come in and fix us here in the center of spring. For our astrology this week, we have on April 17th, Mercury in Taurus sextile Venus in Pisces at 13 degrees. Same day, we have Mercury in Taurus conjunct Uranus in Taurus at 13 degrees. On the April 18th, we have, I don't know why I said it that way, Venus in Pisces sextile Uranus in Taurus at 13 degrees. Same day, we have the Sun in Aries square Pluto and Capricorn at 28 degrees. And on the 19th, we have the Sun moving into Taurus. Next week, we have the Beltane class. Be there and or be square. Your choice. But I would love it if you'd join me. I really would. It'd be so cool to see you, dude. Honestly. Just like swing by. Fuck it. Also, next week, we begin the retro shade, a word I learned from Jessica Lugnato. Retro shade / retrograde portion of the year officially begins. And so if you have made it all the way to this portion of the podcast, good job. But also let me say, this is our last full moon that we're going to have of the year, or at least for the majority of the year, where all of the planets are still direct, where all of the planets are moving the way that we expect them to. Now, remember, don't get freaked out. Pluto, Neptune, Uranus literally spend like half of the year in retrograde. So them going into retrograde, not such a big deal. The days that they station and appear to change direction one way or the other, those can be a little funkadelic. But all the other planets are about to station retrograde too. I was looking at the book and I was like, well, that's just a lot. That's just a lot. So, something that we talked about, me and my patrons early in the beginning of the year, kind of overlooking the astrology of the year, was that this year has all of this forward momentum, and then one by one, all of the planets just about station retrograde. And so after these, 2.5 years of COVID and lockdown and all of this, Neptune and Jupiter are doing this fancy shit, and this is moving, the planets are moving away from Pluto, away from Saturn, out of the signs that Pluto and Saturn rule, and into some spaces where it feels like there's a little bit more freedom. But just like with those outer planets, they represent slower moving, larger structures. And we personally in our own little lives may have moved on, and I'm like over it and I'm like doing something else now. But the world has not moved on. We're still in COVID. Am I sick of it? Fuck yeah, I am. I want to go to the goddamn club. Okay. Like, what the fuck? I want to go see shows. I miss my friends. I want to hang out. And also pandemic, dog. And there's not a lot we can do about that. So I encourage you all to stay safe and sane in in whatever the fuck it is you get up to this week. Because COVID is still here. COVID is still here. Duh. But yeah, we are about to step into the retrograde portion of the dance party. And so, dance party indeed. I don't want you to think of this as like the great shutdown or like, oh, we started to make forward progress and blah. Think of it like a dance. There's some steps forward, there's some steps backwards, some steps to this side, some steps to that side, a little dip, a little twist, a little come on, shimmy, shimmy, right? Like, don't get freaked out about the idea of, oh my God, I have to plunge and drive forward in a straight line to success and victory as fast as I possibly can. Because you're not gonna. You're not. So don't set yourself up for that kind of disappointment or harm, right? Like, let me just throw myself at this wall. Let's not. Uh, is it super valid to be extremely frustrated? Yeah, it totally is. And so, as I have been encouraging you for a year and a half now, engage in your self-care practices. My lovely friend Jessica Henry, who I've mentioned on the podcast previously and will mention again in the future, um, pointed out something really important that, TLDR, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but one of the takeaways from what she said was it's extremely important for us to begin to think about self-care as not this extra thing that we add on and not this like thing that we want to aspire to be good at, but it's just a thing that we do. It needs to become fundamental to our routines, and thinking about self-care in the same way that you would think about brushing your teeth or taking a shower or straightening up your house or going grocery shopping is just stuff you have to do. It's just part of the process. It's just it's just another set of things that are needed to attend to life on the physical plane. And, doesn't that bring us all back around again, right? This is what's up as we step out of Ostara and into Beltane season, the sun moving into Taurus. It is about getting out of your head, getting out of your psychology, getting out of your heart even a little bit, and coming into the physical world and attending to the physical plane. And I encourage you all to make that shift that Jessica is talking about, and to begin understanding that these things that we think of as like, oh, if I have time, I'll stretch. If I have time, I'll do some deep breathing. No, they just need to become a part of the thing. We humans have been under too much stress for too long. We're not built to deal with this stuff this long. And it's not just COVID, right? Like, it would be terrible if it was just COVID, and it's not. And it's kind of like the worst case scenario of how our government could handle something like this on top of everything else that's going on. We're not built for this kind of stress, and we're not built for this kind of stress under these circumstances for this sustained period of time, all of that stuff. We're not. So I, with all of my loving fibers in my beings, send out a caring, respectful whoop ass of a reminder that your self-care practices are keeping you alive as much as eating and pooping are keeping you alive. So allow Beltane to bring you into a season of coming back to the body, coming back to the physical plane, and coming back to understanding how vital it is to attend to our rhythms and our systems here as just a means of survival. That's what's up. If you love the podcast, you can support this work through Patreon. Thank you, all my patrons. You can leave a review on your podcast service wherever you listen to this. And if you're feeling especially pornistic, you can give it a thumbs port. Oh, I have been alone for too long. Thanks so much for listening to me ramble alone in the dark. Keep your fingers crossed. Our building might be getting sold, and We're trying to create a tenants association and all of that cool stuff. So who knows how that's going to go. Um, right? And. Thanks for listening. Love you guys so much. Share this on social media. Tell a friend. Leave a 5-star rating if you are feeling especially heathenistic. The ratings truly help. Not just on Patreon, but go to your podcast player, wherever it is, Anchor, Spotify, whatever. Leave me a rating there, please and thank you, if you want to. I appreciate it. All right, that's it. I'm done. Goodbye. Blessed be. I love you guys. Blessed be.